to transition now into a fun segment that we call start, sub, or sit, kind of a lightning round type of situation where we're going to give you 3 different topics. You'll start one, you'll sub one, and then you'll sit one. And then we can have a little discussion from there about it. So we got a few of them for you here. And to start, we want to give you a scenario saying maybe you're going to go back to college or maybe high school, and you're going to put in an offense that is a non-pick and roll centered offense. And so these are 3 kind of old school type offenses that you could choose from. So start, sub, or sit, the flex offense, the 5-out motion, pass and cut, screen away, or the UCLA high post offense. Start, sub, or sit, those 3.
Well, I'll start with the flex, okay. Probably because it's the one I've taught the most. I mean, I ran it. My first head coaching job as a Division III coach in Vermont. We ran it. I had run it as a player in college, and I think it's an important thing. And not that you can't try other things, and I certainly have done that throughout my career, but you've got to understand what you're teaching. I think sometimes, one of the mistakes you make in coaching is you look at what other people are doing, you really, really like it, and you jump into trying to run it before you have an extensive enough knowledge of sort of the ins and outs and what to do with it. And I've made that mistake in the past with motion offense, which is why I will sit that one. And, and sub, what was the other one?
UCLA, high post.
Yeah, I've run out of the UCLA. We did it at some set plays this year, not a lot, but we did run some after timeout stuff out of the UCLA. There's a lot you can do with it. I loved, when Jerry Sloan was in Utah, they ran that stuff for years in addition to the Stockton Malone pick and rolls. But as Stockton and Malone went out, Jerry went to more and more of just his UCLA stuff. And it's really, really, really hard to guard. So I would sub that one in, and I would put the motion offense on the bench.
Coach, I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on the flex. And like you said, everyone knows it, but if you haven't taught it before, what do you think is the importance of when you're going to run the flex? You got to do maybe these things well, or pay attention to these things to make it be effective.
You've got to be able to screen. If you're not going to screen people, and then you've got to be able to recognize and counter against what a lot of people do, which is try to switch everything down there. And you've got to be really, really good on all of those things on the flex. I also think that the reason I got away from the flex quite honestly is, you get to a point where there's a big difference on your own team and the level of skill of your players. To me, the flex is I would call it an equal opportunity offense, right? And I think it's great because the ball moves and everything else, and there's good cutting and it's fun to play and all of that. But I got to a point where, I wanted the ball in certain guys' hands more than in other people's hands. I didn't want it to just run through. I think the flex is good for a team where the abilities are fairly equal. I think you've got to have pretty good across the board skill and decision making, which I think is a weakness of it. But if you have those kind of guys, I think it's good. I also think it's a good offense for teams that really aren't going to have, people who can break you down off the dribble and need to create your shots in different ways. But you really do have to be able to, everybody's got to be able to pass, cut, screen, and read and react to switching defenses. If you make that guard-to-guard pass and you get automatic with that and turn it over going that way, it's a layup the other way. And
right.
So, guys have got to make good decisions on that stuff.
Coach, sorry, Pat, can I?
No, go ahead. Yeah.
I guess my quick follow up for you on this was your sit and the motion. Um, is it more because of the difficulty for kids to pick up all the reads and the cuts and the actions, or is it from a coaching side? It's a lot to teach to try to make all these reads. I mean, what would be your hesitancy of running that offense?
Yeah, I mean, again, I have tried to run that offense, not in the NBA, but when I was in college, and I just didn't teach it as well as I taught other stuff. I just didn't, and that's when I've made mistakes in coaching. I mean, I didn't have the understanding or didn't teach it as well as I did other things, and just never really got comfortable with it. And again, I got to the point in my coaching career where I wanted the ball in certain guys' hands more and more to make the plays and create offense. And I felt like over time, we were able to do a better job of taking care of the ball, not turning it over as much, because we weren't allowing guys who weren't as good at decision makers, weren't as good at passers and things like that, to have their ball in their hands as much to make those decisions. I remember one of the stories that has stuck with me throughout my coaching career. When my brother first broke in with the New York Knicks as an assistant, he was doing he was both on the bench, but he was also going out and scouting opponents. And because he's, somebody so eager to learn all the time, is what he would try to do when he was out, when he had to scout somebody, is he would see if on that, I'd get in early and see if on that afternoon he could watch a college practice somewhere before he went to the game at night. So he was scouting the Milwaukee Bucks, or at least scouting in Milwaukee. And he went up to Wisconsin, Green Bay, when Dick Bennett was there. It, to my way of thinking, the best college coach that I've ever seen in my life. And he actually took my job when I got fired at Wisconsin. It was the single greatest upgrade in coaching that has ever been made. But anyway, my brother was at his practice at Green Bay, and Jeff had done his his studying and things, and realized that Green Bay every year was top 5, top 10 in the nation in fewest turnovers. And Jeff asked him, Coach, what do you do to, that you do such a great job and not turning the ball over? And he said, Jeff, that's simple. Don't play the guys who turn it over. And so I don't totally believe in that, and I don't want to get into this whole thing on turnovers right now, but sure. The part I do agree with is you can't just let everybody handle the ball and do things they're not capable of doing and then be frustrated that your team's turning the ball over. Well, your team's turning the ball over because you're giving guys who are not great decision makers and not great passers a chance to make decisions and make passes. So, what do you think's going to happen?
Absolutely.
Coach, my quick follow-up, and sorry to pepper you with questions on the motion, but to that point, if you try to hyper-focus guys as your players' roles in the offense, could it be better than like, hey, you always cut to the rim, or basically ways to avoid them having the ball in their hands? But then does the offense maybe become too predictable that it loses its effectivity?
Hey, listen, I love motion offense now, Pat. I mean, I've seen teams, who run it great. I've tried to coach against it and found it very hard to defend because it was a read and react type thing. So yeah. I love motion offense. I just didn't think I could teach it. To me, though, finding a happy medium in terms of roles is important. And again, I'll go back to Dick Bennett. I coached against him when I was at Wisconsin, both as an assistant and as a head coach, and he ran the blocker mover motion offense. And so he knew there's, on each side of the floor, there was going to be a blocker, and that guy was going to be the screener. And then the other guys are moving off of him. And I think that defined it a little bit more, right? We're not going to have any confusion. Am I screening for you, or are you screening for me, right? We didn't have that. Bobby Knight, when he was at Indiana, that was always the inside guy screening for the guy on the outside. So if I had a guy in the corner, I'd be screening down for him. If I were on the block, saying the ball got reversed, and I'd be stepping up to set a back screen. I do think, having those kind of things defined and being able to read off of that is really, really helpful. Now, it creates other problems in college. I always used to laugh, but not really. And I would always say, and there's no one, I don't think, anywhere other than maybe his son Tony at Virginia, who respects Dick Bennett more than I do as a coach. But I always wondered, like, how the hell do you recruit somebody to be a blocker? Like, it's hard enough to recruit. You go like, son, here's the role I foresee for you. You're going to be a screener for 4 years here. Dick must have been a hell of a recruiter to get people into that role. But
got to sell the positive.
I do think defining roles within the motion is really, really good. And again, I don't think there's anything tougher to defend than anything that's a read and react type of thing. I mean, I think you saw it this year. Every interview with Mike Budenholzer in the NBA Finals, right? And they struggled early on to score in the series with Phoenix. And what he kept saying all the time is, we've got to play more random. He kept saying that every interview. We got to play more random, got to play more random, got to play more random. Well, he's not talking about playing like a pickup game. He's talking about being more unpredictable and playing on concepts more than on set plays. And I think all of us know that particularly against the best teams, you're going to have to be able to play that way because, other than maybe after a timeout where they don't know what's coming, if you're going to come down and call a play against a really good team who is well coached, well prepared, I mean, you're going to have trouble. And so you've got to have, whether you want to call it motion offense or read and react or playing out of anything you want, you're going to have to be able to do that. And I think that's what Mike Budenholzer was saying, in the NBA Finals. They knew what their concepts and their spacing were. So when he was saying, I wouldn't use the term random because to me that sounds like, everybody just sort of do what you want. But I knew what Mike meant, and that's not what he meant. And Mike's a great, great coach, and he understood they just had to play out of concepts and react to what the Phoenix Suns did defensively. And I think that's important. And I think that people who run what I would call more classic motion offense, that's what they're great at teaching, is read and react to the defense and play according to people's skills. I mean, where you see it, to me, another great example is you watch the Golden State Warriors and watch how they play after Steph Curry gives the ball up. So he comes down, he might run pick and roll, he might not, but he'll throw the ball back to the top. Boom, he's in motion. And now everybody is looking to screen for Steph Curry, and so he's able to come off screens, very much motion offense type stuff. But yet the good part to me is what I'm talking about is you got to play to your best player. They're doing both. They're running motion offense, but they're definitely featuring their best player. He's the hardest guy to guard in the NBA. I think all the guards would tell you that. And it's not because of what he can do with the ball, because there's a lot of guys in the NBA that are great with the ball. James Harden, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant's impossible to guard. Steph Curry's good in that situation too. But when you can also play off the ball, really hard to guard. And as you guys know, and college does a better job at teaching, but when you see it in the NBA, it's hard to guard, is people who move without the basketball. That's a lot harder to guard than the guys with the ball. And you combine Steph being able to do both, and it's a nightmare for coaches again that are opposing him, and for defenders that have to guard him.
For sure.
Yeah. All right, Coach. Our next start sub sit for you is attacking a side ice defense on the ball screen. So start sub or sit, basically flipping the screen and having the guard snake to the middle, popping the big man to play a second side action, or popping the big man to have the guard come off a handoff with him. Start sub or sit.
Wow. I mean, those are all good. That one's going to be tough because we do all of those. So I'm not sure I can give you a start, sub, or sit. I guess so I'm not bailing on the game. I will sit, pop in the big back, and swing into a second side action because I'm generally playing to that pick and roll because those are the two guys I want involved. So yeah. I don't want to take them out. I think that I will start the pop in the big back and go into the handoff action. And the reason is because that gets my guard into the middle of the floor. The other thing is, and there are some teams in the NBA that do a great job of this. San Antonio being one is, you're on the guard and you're pushing that thing down to the baseline, as you called it, an ice. They're pushing it down to the baseline, throw it back to the big, especially if that big can shoot and your big has to recover. The guard's on the wrong side now. He's forcing that ball to the baseline. So you've got that immediate back cut. And then when I start my back cut and that guard takes the back cut away, now I've got the angle to come off for the handoff rather than just throwing it with the guard on the top side, the defending guard on the top side, just throwing it to the big and trying to run off. I'm setting it up with that back cut and coming off to turn the corner. And now I can play out of that. So that will be my start, but I like flipping the screen. We did it a lot. I think the thing that you have to be careful of, we never wanted to flip the screen if it was close to the sideline over there. There are some teams. Steve Clifford has done it since he's been in Charlotte. Anytime the corner is empty and you flip the screen on that side of the floor with an empty corner, they're going to blitz. They're going to trap that pick and roll. And so that's okay. I don't mind going against the blitz, but not if you don't have any room over there. Yeah. And so that would be my sub, and mainly because of the caveat of I don't like it in every situation. But the reality is I actually like all three of those options. Boston, back when we played them, they won the championship in 2008, went to the finals in 2010, and we went to the finals in 2009. We used to play them. They would throw the ball back even to Kendrick Perkins, who was a total non-shooter, and their main action was throw it back, swing it, and then Kendrick Perkins would pin down. And they would come off of that single. And so there's a lot of good action. And I think that, it's possible to combine all of those things into what you do. And then what you're teaching is the spacing and the reading defense. And really a lot of what we were talking about, in any offense, your ability to read defense is essential. And you have to, so if you think that's out because of pick and rolls and things, people would be wrong. You're still going to have to, read what's going on and play, get to the second option and things like that.
Yeah. Coach, my follow-up is with when you flip the screen, what are you telling the guard maybe before and then after the screen to use it effectively?
Well, I think like on any pick and roll, right? I think it all depends on who you are, but also on how you're being played, right? So if people are going to go under on that, and we've set it out where we would like, depending on who you are, to me, anytime a guy goes under, our screener was going to offer a rescreen. We called it a twist. He was going to offer that if the guard went under, and he had to pivot on his low foot there, to get the angle to catch the guy back, and you can come off, but also the option to shoot the ball versus the under to shoot the three, but if the guy went over the top, now you're attacking the big, as you said earlier, Pat, on a snake to the middle, where you may even beat the big baseline, but we really want to attack that guy. Now, most people in that situation are going to be back on a pretty good drop, But if you can snake to the middle and get going to the rim and your big can roll out of there, you can make the late lob and things like that. And so, those are pretty basic plays now in the NBA, and NBA guards on pick and rolls are so good at making all of those that the idea is, you just somehow, to me, what you're trying to do is force those guards to go over the top. I mean, so that's why against the under, we're trying to flip the screen. I mean, if you have great shooters, like you're not going under on Steph Curry, but for the most part, I think you want to take away the under the best you can. And then I think guys pretty much know what the plays are that they're looking for.
Sorry, my quick follow-up on this one is going to be the big rolling and your teaching points on like when they look for the ball after a roll. Because sometimes the confusion of, am I just straight rim rolling and I'm looking for a lob, or do I look for a quick pocket pass or short roll? So say on that step up screen, when the big opens up, is he looking for a short pass first and then rolling long to the rim, or do you want him just to get out and put pressure on the rim in those situations?
Well, I mean, we generally want our guys rolling hard, but it's a read, right? I mean, you've got to read what's going on, and it also is individual. So we had a guy, Jackson Hayes, I think is one of the best pick and roll guys in the league, like set the pick and sprint to the rim and throw it up, and he can catch it and finish. He's great on that. He's also pretty damn good catching the pocket pass and making a play, but we would rather have him going to the rim. Mm-hmm. But there's other guys who are not great lob threats rolling to the rim, but are pretty good in that pocket catching the ball. I mean, like Draymond Green, he's almost always going to short roll into the pocket and then be able to make the next play. So a lot of it's individual, but I think as you're teaching it, guys have to learn to do both and read situations. And it's been amazing to me, even over the last 4 or 5 years, everybody's done such a good job working with their big guys that almost all big guys now in the league are able to catch that ball on the short roll and make the next pass. And it used to be, I remember going back, not even that far back, 6-7 years, where our whole idea against good guards was, we're going to blitz them, make the pass to the big, and let's see if that guy can make a play 4-on-3. Well, now the answer most of the time is he can. The guy I really remember being amazed in his development was Jarrett Allen, who's now in Cleveland, but having watched Jarrett before, but having been out of coaching for 2 years between Detroit and New Orleans and being in the bubble announcing games, I was like, wow, Jarrett Allen makes all these passes now on the short roll. He just used to be a lob guy before. And you start noticing around the league, like everybody's done so much work with their guys on that, that it's tough now. It's one of the reasons that it's getting harder and harder to defend pick and rolls, because those big guys have become so skilled in being able to catch that pocket pass and finish or make the next play.
Yeah. All right. Well, Coach, we got one more start sub sit for you before we get you out of here time wise. So this will be one more where let's say you're going back to another level and you're not going to be playing man-to-man defense. You're gonna stick with the zone defense for your main defense for the year. So start sub sit 1-3-1 zone, a 2-3 zone, or a 3-2 zone.
I'll sit the 3-2 zone, but again, that's probably just. And I'm thinking a conventional 3-2 where the back guys are having to cover the corners. And I'm going to do that because now, one of my guards, whoever's playing it up in the thing, is going to have to sink on the weak side and be my weak side rebounder on one side of the floor. And I don't like that. And I also, because I've always had, or at least in the time in the NBA, but really even in college, I always had big guys like true bigs, and I don't really want them going to the corner if they have to. So I'm going to sit the 3-2. I'll start the 1-3-1 again, and I'll give you two reasons again. And the first one I've used several times. I've coached that more. I played it a lot in college. I'm more familiar with it, I think. So I do a better job teaching it. But the other thing is I've just seen very few different approaches to the 1-3-1. I mean, I pretty much know if I go 1-3-1, what I'm going to see from the offense. You know, they're going to go two guys out front, two guys in the corners, and a guy inside. And so I'm not going to see a lot of different stuff. Now, when I was in college, we actually attacked the 1-3-1 differently. We put our two guys, big guys, on the blocks. We put our 3-man at the nail and played two guards out front. So that back guy who's used to going corner to corner, there's nobody in the corner.
Yeah.
Our idea, and we also ran some set plays, was we're just going to throw something at you that you haven't seen every day. And we're going to try to overpower you inside. And it was pretty effective. But for the most part, you know what you're going to see on the 1-3-1. I think it allows you your best chance of trapping out of it or not. I think you can put good pressure on. I think it's a little bit easier, to me anyway, to keep the offense on the perimeter more. Again, maybe it wouldn't be if people ran two guys into the heart of the zone, you know, like you do against 2-3 or something, where you put one guy down in the dunker and another guy coming to the high post or mid post. But you just don't see that much against 1-3-1. And so it's pretty easy, I think, to at least keep teams playing on the perimeter. So, yeah, that's the way I'd go. I'd go 1-3-1. I'd sub to 2-3 and try to be really compact. And I'd sit the 3-2. But again, it's all personnel based too. So they used to play a little 3-2 zone, not a lot, but a little bit in Indiana when Ron Artest, he was at the time, now Meta World Peace, but when he was there and he'd play the top and then he would drop, we used to call it a monster zone. So it would really become a 2-3. He'd play at the top and then drop. That I liked a little bit. But we don't see still a lot of zone in the NBA. I think it's pretty effective. I've wondered, my brother and I have wondered to each other, you know, what would happen if somebody would commit to it, say at the NBA level, like Jim Boeheim does at the college level, and just say, you know, we're going to play it 48 minutes. There's a guy here in Orlando at Rollins College who's been here like 40 years, Tom Klusman. And a few years back, Tom went to playing all zone, and he plays all the zones we were just talking about, but he plays all zone. He doesn't play any man-to-man. And so he's become a big advocate of the zone. And when I was here in Orlando, I would, you know, I remember going to lunch with him one day, and he's saying, I don't understand why you guys don't play more zone. And as we got talking, he goes, and when you do play zone, you know, as soon as somebody hits a 3, you're out of the zone. But they can hit 3 straight threes against your man-to-man, and you don't get out of the man-to-man. Like, right. What's going on? And I said, well, you know, I think that's an honest case. It comes down to what you believe in. And so I believe in man-to-man defense. And so when we're not being effective, my thing is we need to do it better or harder, right? Or maybe make some adjustment. I don't really believe in the zone. I'll throw it out there. And when it doesn't work, I'm getting out of it because I didn't believe in it to begin with, whereas Tom Klusman totally believes in it. And so if it doesn't go in, yeah, he might switch zones and give you a different look. But he's probably most of the time going to do what I do with man-to-man. We need to play it better. We need to play it harder. We got to close out harder. We got to do all of that. You know, so we all have stuff that we'll try, but then we've got a core of things that we really believe in, you know. Yeah. And I don't, that's offensively and defensively. And we're going to stick with those things. I think most coaches are like that. And I certainly am when it comes to, you know, when it comes to defense.
Coach, my follow-up is actually the offense you use to attack the 1-3-1. Could you just kind of expand a little bit on it? Was the goal basically then we just want to get the ball? We're just trying to get the ball inside and then just kind of pound them inside with your alignment like that? Or what was your thinking behind it?
Okay. Well, the first thing is, right, I mean, a conventional 1-3-1, you've got your wings out wide and high, right? And basically, what are they doing on the strong side of the floor? What's that wing doing? Is he's basically in line with the pass to the corner, right?
Yeah.
Well, there's nobody in the corner. So now what are you going to do with that guy? Like, is he going to come up and play the ball? Is he going to drop back in front of the post? You know, what's he doing? Your back man in a conventional 1-3-1 is going corner to corner. And a lot of teams are playing a small guy back there. They're not playing their center back there, right? What's he going to do? There's nowhere to run to. He's a post defender now. You know, he's a post defender. So we're trying to, basically what we're trying to do is, number one, give you something that you don't see. We were trying to give you something you don't see very often. Number two, do something that your defense isn't really set up to defend, you know? No. And just like you do in man-to-man, we're trying to mismatch you a little bit. You know, we're trying to mismatch you in the back. And then that guy in the middle at the nail was our best player, and he could really go anywhere. So starting at the nail, like, because what a lot of teams would do, we'd come down in that set, and they'd say, okay, they would come up with their wing if they knew what we were doing, play the ball, drop the point guy back in front of our guy at the nail, and drop the center back in front of our guy in the post, right? So we would give that guy in the middle now could go on the move. So, you know, he could pop out up top. We could swing the ball, but we were going to try to pound you inside, and we were going to totally distort your zone. I mean, you really couldn't play. You could say you were in a 1-3-1, but you really weren't. I mean, you weren't going to play 1-3-1 against that set. Now, you got to have guys on the block who can play, and we did. You know, we did. And we could throw the ball inside, and we could throw the ball diagonal and the whole thing. I mean, it was, to be honest, we didn't move a lot out of it. I mean, we said that guy at the nail could go where he wanted, but he basically played the nail and would occasionally pop out, and we were just moving the ball and trying to go inside and swinging the ball and getting into some one-on-one situations. I mean, it was pretty good. We also back screened the zone quite a bit, the 1-3-1 on the swing, and got some lobs. And I think in general, I mean, I think my teams were always at every level pretty good against zones. I mean, number one, I think whereas a lot of people are afraid of zones, I never really was. I mean, and this isn't really true. Certainly not if you're talking the great zone coaches like Boeheim, but I always told my teams is, listen, they're in zone for a reason here. And the reason is they know damn well they can't guard you. And so they're going zone. And so if they can't guard you man-to-man, they can't guard you zone. And then the other thing is, and this goes back to the mismatch part of it, I remember, you know, we're probably starting to get into a generation of coaches now that hasn't seen all of the Don Meyer tapes, but certainly in my generation of coaches, there was a guy, Don Meyer, who was at Lipscomb University for a long time and then went up somewhere in North Dakota and had really good programs. And he had tapes, coaching tapes out on literally, I don't know, he had 50 some of them out. I mean, there's not a topic in coaching he didn't hit on. But I remember on the zone offense one, what really struck me, zone offense and zone defense is, you know, in zone, I mean, in man-to-man, you get to choose who you're going to guard, but not where you're going to guard. Like, I can take you down into the post or do whatever. In zone, you're going to choose where you're going to guard, but not who you're going to guard. And so I always like to try to invert against the zone a lot. Like when I was in Miami, we didn't see a lot of zone there, but we would always put Wade on the baseline against the zone. And so if you get him the ball down there, he's always being guarded by a forward. Hell, guards couldn't even guard Dwayne Wade. And now you're asking bigger guys to keep him out of the paint when he catches the ball there, one dribble from the rim. I mean, they couldn't do it, and so you're inverting responsibilities and things like that. And that's the same idea in the 1-3-1 for us. You put a guard in the back, we're going to make him guard a big guy. We're not going to let him guard the guard, shooters in the corner. And so I think that has been a big part of what I've tried to do against zones. And I've also thought we didn't do as much of that this year because, we had guys in there like Zion who could make plays. We didn't need to put guards down there. But the other big thing to me against zones we have always emphasized getting the ball inside. Like the ball's got to get to the middle and the baseline. Like I absolutely hate it when we move the ball around the perimeter and shoot the ball and never get the ball inside. I mean, I think zones are very vulnerable inside. Everybody talks about zone busters and, I think it's the wrong approach. I mean, certainly it'll just like with me. I don't think shooting's any more important against the zone than it is against man-to-man. I mean, shooting's important, period. But I think that the zone is really vulnerable against attacking the basket and getting the ball inside. And we tried to do that as much as we possibly could.
You're off the start sub sit hot seat. That was a lot of fun. Thanks for going through those scenarios with us.